All right, what is going on, Laker fans? Appreciate you guys tuning in. Listen, I promised you guys. I said, look, at some point, I'm going to do some type of live broadcast during the All-Star break. Of course, All-Star game coming up today. So we got a lot of good topics that I want to get into. And I want to introduce, for the first time on this channel, Khobi Price, who covers the Los Angeles Lakers for the SoCal News Group, who's actually out in Indiana right now. And right when he's done here, he'll head over to the arena to catch LeBron and his presser. Khobi, what's up, brother? Thank you for coming on. How are you?
I'm good. Appreciate you having me on. This is something we've been talking about for a minute, so I'm glad to finally get this running. Get
Well,
on the show.
it's obviously anytime we're talking Lakers basketball, there's always interest. And for those who don't know Khobi, I'm just a couple questions about yourself, and then we'll get into
Yeah.
Lakers basketball. So, tell us where you're originally from, and this is your first year as a Laker beat writer.
Yeah.
You probably hear his voice a ton right now if you're watching anything pregame, postgame practices. Khobi is working his way into the entire system. But, Khobi, can you give us a little background here real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I mean, I was born actually in Indianapolis. So this is where I was born, lived here for a few years. I grew up in Chicago. Went to school out there, Northern Illinois University graduate. Moved out to Florida after college. South Florida. Worked for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Covered a variety of teams, programs there. My last assignment was Miami Hurricanes. Covered their 2021 football season,
Hmm.
the last season of Manny Diaz as the head coach there before Mario Cristobal took over. And then from there, moved to Orlando to work for the Orlando Sentinel as the Orlando Magic beat writer for a season and a half before moving out to LA and now covering the Lakers.
Well, welcome, brother. Welcome. Okay,
Appreciate it.
so the name, if you're in LA and if it's around the Los Angeles Lakers,
Yeah.
um, Khobi. What's
Yeah.
give us a little bit of background of your name.
So yeah, I mean, the first question people usually ask was, "Were you named after Kobe Bryant?" And no, I was not. I was not named after him. I'm just old enough to where Kobe Bryant wasn't like Kobe Bryant when I was born. Like he was in the league. Like he was just drafted. Like he was just drafted when I was born.
Mm,
So he wasn't like Kobe Bryant to the point where my parents would name me after him.
sure.
My name's supposed to have a different meaning, that's Swahili meaning. So that's
Mm.
kind of where my name was birthed out. I guess came from. But I forget. Like I've about this with my dad recently. The whole like how he came to it has like escaped my memory, at least my short term memory. But I can at least assure you, it's not named after Kobe Bryant.
Well, it's the spelling of it too. Awesome spelling,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's why it's
I'm
different.
I'm sure you're asked about it all the time. Working
Yeah,
now out here in LA and working as far as covering the Lakers. Okay, one more personal question for you, and then we could start talking about Lakers basketball. For those who are just tuning in right now, whether you're going to tune in live or you're going to end up watching it down the road, um, just kind of want to start talking about the second half of the season, what the Lakers, where they're going, what they're doing, what our level of confidence. But Cole, before I do that, how has it been so far covering the Lakers? Is it as you expected? Is it more hectic than you thought? Is it crazy how many stories are there? Or is it, were you kind of expecting this?
I mean, there's some things I definitely expected a greater level of, I guess you want to say, just focus, intensity to the season. You know, Lakers fans, they're very passionate, understandably so. This is one of the story franchises, not just in the NBA, but across all professional sports. So with that comes a level of scrutiny, attention, and just passion. And I understood that before, when I was applying for the job, when I was offered the job, when I took the job. So that was definitely expected, but the day in and day out of it is just a little bit more, I guess, intensity. Um, yeah, I'll leave the word at intensity than even could have expected. Expecting so much of it, but then also just saying like, oh yeah, it's even more than maybe you would have thought or would have guessed.
No, and listen, there's something to that because I think, like you said, there are franchises out there that obviously get a lot of pub, get a lot of love, but there's levels to it. The
Yeah,
Cowboys are not the same as the Cardinals. The
right.
Lakers are not the same as the Kings. It's just that's not how it works. So you got an interesting role in that, and this kind of will take me right into some of our conversations that we want to get into. So it was just a couple weeks ago where the Lakers were a couple games below 500. They got blown out
Yeah.
at one point by the Rockets by 30. They were down by 30 at one point. They were down by 20 at one point against the Atlanta Hawks. And it was those back-to-back games and a lot of question marks. And it was one of the lower points of the season. You could have made an argument earlier in the season, earlier in January, what was the lowest point. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on, here they are now, the dust has settled, went on a nice run here, have won 6 of their last 7 games, finished that road trip 4-2. At one point they were 1-2, and are now 4 games over 500. So it's actually one of the best records that the Lakers have had all season, being 4 games over 500.
Yeah.
What do you make of the last couple of weeks and the roller coaster of the Lakers, the ups and downs, and the latest one being an up?
Yeah, it feels. I mean, I feel like we've been here at multiple points throughout the season, but it does feel like they're starting. And I say this with hesitancy because anytime I start to think this, I'm proven wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
it does feel like they're actually legitimately starting to turn a corner in their season. I think one of the big things that has come about during that 6 game Grammy road trip is they have a new starting lineup. And as a lineup that I think a lot of people at the beginning of the season argue should have or could have been, a starting lineup contention with or contention to be the starting lineup with, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. And that lineup has been dominant the past, however many games that they started. I know that they didn't start together in Utah because LeBron was out, but they've been a very good group. So that's helped turn the page on the season. And I think they just having consistency, even with guys being injured and out of the lineup, there has been a consistency in terms of all right, these units play together. These are substitution patterns, and that's just guys are getting to a good rhythm. And individually, guys have stepped up their performances. I'm sure we'll get into it. D'Lo, um, Austin has had a good run.
Sure.
AD has been, you know, this has been a special season. I'm sure, I've given this a little thought, but not like too much enough thought to like really make a declaration. But to me, this is one of the best seasons of his career. Where you want to put it, first, second, third, fourth, whatever. But since he's been in the NBA, the two-way play, the consistency has been one of the best stretches of play of his career. So when you get that, of course, you also have LeBron. Like the positioning, you wish they had a little bit more consistency early on in the season, so they could be higher in the standings. But they feel like they found something the past couple weeks that makes you believe, okay, the last 26 games, you know, they can make up ground, and that's in that period.
Khobi, I'm going to go something you said in the beginning. And as I try to get comfortable, I kick my camera. So it's a good move right there. Something you said in the beginning about the starting lineup. You said that
Yeah,
a lot of this might, you could attribute at least some of it to the starting lineup. And the starting lineup, of course, is LeBron, Anthony Davis, D'Lo, Austin Reeves, and Rui Hachimura. Why do you think it's taken Darvin Ham so long to think, or let's say to find the group that he thinks makes sense? Or like you mentioned, a lot of Laker fans are saying, why are you overthinking this? Just go with these 5 and roll with it. And we've seen, I know there have been injuries, but we've seen Cam Reddish, Torian Prince, Jared Vanderbilt, Max Christie at times. Again, and I know there's been injuries, but there's been times where he took Austin Reeves, started off the bench. D'Lo started off the bench, back in the starting lineup. Why do you think it's taken so long to come to this resolution as far as the starting lineup? And do you think, hey, as long as those 5 guys are available, that's the starting 5 the rest of the way?
it feels like it should be. I mean, to answer the first part of what you said, your first question, I think there was hesitancy in terms of, look, you know, we start off the season, and admittedly, like Austin didn't have the best start of the season, and that kind of leads into him, going from being a starter to a bench role. And I think, you could argue maybe that was too reactionary. I think we were just within the first 10 games of the season. I think that was game number 8 or 9, where Austin moved to a bench role, and that just changes the entire complexion of the team. Um, in addition to, Torian was he was a day one starter, and he started his first however many games before being moved to a bench role. I think it was in that game against the Knicks. I think that was the first game he came off the bench for this season. So,
Hmm.
I think there was like I know that Darvin's been very complimentary of Torian. Saying the 3 and D aspect has how it complements and keeps the floor spacing, opens up the game for LeBron, AD, and all the playmakers. But to a certain point, like, some of the lineups that were being used, like the D'Lo, Cam, Torian, AD, LeBron one, like that
Hmm.
produced just not at the level that you may want from a starting lineup. The issue that the Lakers experienced so much earlier in the season was slow starts. They would get down by, especially early on. I felt like they would get down like double digits every game or every other game. So I think Darvin wanted to just test, like, see these lineups, see how they would work. And I guess he always knew that this lineup he's seeing now was always when he could lean on it in his back pocket, say, all right, if we need to go to it, we know it can be there. I think I understand the frustration with that, just because, that kind of gets you into a spot where if it doesn't work for however many games, you put yourself in a hole where the Lakers are ninth in the West, I want to say.
Yep, ninth.
And it's they can still make up ground, but now you have 26 games to make up X amount of games to get to, they want to get to the playoffs. They want to be in the plan. So if you're trying to get to the fifth or sixth spot, the top four seem pretty solidified. With the Thunder,
Clippers,
Clippers,
Denver. Yep.
Nuggets, and
Mhm.
Minnesota. The top four seem pretty solidified. Even the Kings, I think, at five. They seem like they have some distance, but maybe you can catch the Kings. I think the Pelicans are, up there in that that six range. Um, So I think that's why, just in terms of like just trying to see different lineups, trying to lean on guys who, Cam Reddish had nice stretches during the season.
Mhm.
Torian's been one of their best shooters. He had a cold stretch during, I think, November, but he's been one of their best shooters. Since then, like even D'Angelo Russell got benched after a cold December. So like there's been a lot of reactionary, just like this guy's not playing well. All right, let's try different things out. This has been a lot of try different things out as opposed to, which I get because that's kind of what the regular season is for. The problem with doing that is if you try so much out for a long period of time, you don't find that consistency. You're not leaning on, but you've what was best last season. I understand success doesn't always translate from season to season, but the argument that a lot of us has made is you're willing to try all this other stuff. Why not try something that was successful
Mm.
for you in the past? Um, and for me, I don't have the best answer on that. I just think there was a desire to try different things out and just see how it worked. And then if you know that this lineup or these configurations gave you success before, it can get you to that place if you need to, bust it out at game 50 or 52 in the season.
If you're just tuning in right now, appreciate you guys being a part of the show. So, kind of just a special live stream today. Khobi Price, who covers the Lakers, he's a Laker beat reporter for the SoCal News Group, also the OC Register, and he's out in Indiana. He's there for the All-Star weekend. Obviously, the All-Star game coming up a little bit later. Khobi, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because a couple of things that you said when we were talking about the standings. So, right now, there's about a 3.5 game difference between number 5 and number 9. So Lakers are sitting at number 9 in front of them. Sacramento, Dallas, New Orleans, and Phoenix. But it's only 3.5 game difference. And
Yeah.
I guess what's your confidence level of the Lakers actually getting out of this top 7? We've seen them before. Last year's a perfect example. They get
Yeah.
in the play-in tournament. They play a Minnesota Timberwolves team, and the Lakers, to be honest with you, got lucky that Rudy Gobert was out. Naz Reid was injured. Jaden McDaniels, that's when he fractured his hand. He punched the wall. I mean, there were a lot of things going against the Timberwolves, and the Lakers needed OT to win that game. How realistic do you think it is to kind of get out of the positioning that they're in? And B, how dangerous is it for the Lakers to be in one of these playing games just based upon there's really good talent 7 through 10 right now?
Yeah. I mean, 3.5 games may not sound like a lot right now, but with 26 games left, I mean, I was doing the math like a little bit earlier, and it's not coming to me. I didn't write this down, but you need to go on a very similar run that they went on last season to
Mm.
make up that difference while also having the teams in front of you. I was wrong. Phoenix has jumped up to, they've gone on
I
a
think
nice
they're
stretch.
5. Yep.
Yeah, they're 5. So it's Phoenix is 5 and New Orleans is 6. And, there's a 3 game gap between Denver and Phoenix. So it feels like the top 4, like I said, is solidified. But, you know, 3.5 games is tough just because not only do they need to go on a run, but they would need the teams in front of them to
Need some
slide.
help.
And yeah, it doesn't feel like Phoenix is going to, Phoenix seems like they found what they need, and New Orleans has been pretty has been pretty significant. Since honestly, since losing to the Lakers in the in-season tournament, they've been playing good ball. So like you're looking at Dallas, Sacramento, which Sacramento's had their struggles at various points through the season, and so has Dallas, especially with health. But making up 3.5 games, especially if those teams in front of you have found their rhythm, that's a tough challenge. So I don't know, even if the Lakers play well, which I think they'll do better in these final 26, but you would need to go like to really get to number 6, like you would need to go at, to me, like 18-8, which I'm not saying that's out of the realm, but I think that's what you need to get to if you're just trying to get to 6, let alone 5 or anything above.
Well, 18-8, and this is a team that, and we're going to find out. I mean, 3 of their first 4 games out of the All-Star break, you're at Golden State, and Golden State's playing better basketball. I know the Lakers kind of had their number. Then you got 1 game here at against San Antonio. Then you're at Phoenix and you're at the Clippers. So you're going to have a homestand to start March: Denver, OKC, Milwaukee, Sacramento, Minnesota, Sacramento again.
Yeah.
So it's not even just the 18-8, Kobe. It's beating really good teams in the process. And it's funny because this team, I think, has shown can they beat good talent? Of course they can.
Absolutely.
Can they also lose 3 out of 4? Of course they can. So I think that's it's a fair way to assess the Lakers. It's a fair way to be critical on the Lakers. And it also, I think there's also some hope there because they did win 6 of 7 and they did beat some good teams and they did look good in the process. And it does feel like there's a starting lineup there that's just a handful. And they should get Cam Reddish and some Max Christie and some of their other guys back here, hopefully not too far after the All-Star break starts.
I was gonna say.
Yep.
I was gonna say, to your point, like these games are not only big just because, like, I'm looking at it now, like they're playing the Warriors twice in the next few weeks. Like you mentioned, they're playing the Suns come right out the break. They're playing the Kings a couple times right out the break. So it's not just big in terms of like them getting, but if you get those games, like especially with the Kings and the Suns,
sure.
not only can you like move up, like get more wins, but you can actually bring them down in a sense. So tough matchups.
Basically worth 2, right? When you go head to head, it's a chance to gain ground and not necessarily need help from another team because you're playing the team that's in front of you.
So exactly, like those matchups against the Warriors and Kings, played them twice. Those are like 4 games and repping 2.
Well, what would you say for you as we get ready for the second half of the season? And I think everybody, I always, we say second half, obviously not 41 games left, but this final stretch, what's the biggest question mark for you? What's the question mark that, when you're writing some of your pieces and some of your stories, or when you're watching games, it's like, I don't really know how that's going to pan out. Is there something that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think one thing, I don't know if I have like the biggest, like a main question, but a question I wonder is how much can the starting lineups well-rounded play continue, or strong play continue in the final 26 games. I feel like we've seen a good amount of the Lakers taking advantage of their size with Rui in the starting lineup. Just because, when you have a front line of LeBron, AD, and Rui, typically one of those guys, and it's usually going to be Rui, has a smaller defender on them. And they've been taking advantage of that in good stretches to really give themselves a boost. So I wonder, do other teams adjust to that? Do other teams, adapt to their size advantage, whether it's mixing up the matchups more, maybe, starting differently in terms of opposing teams. That's something I wonder. Like, can this group, like they showed last year, that this group can play very good ball consistently. I wonder if teams start to sniff out anything that the Lakers have shown the past couple of weeks, or even going back to the playoffs last year. Because I think what's the most encouraging part to me about this lineup is that offensively it's produced at a high level, but it hasn't been become, at least the last time I checked, it hasn't been because of really good shooting, at least 3-point shooting from the starting group. Like, I've checked, I forget the number, but they've been shooting a ridiculous percentage on twos, the starting unit. So can that continue? I know they've been, like, the Lakers overall have been a very good shooting team the last few weeks. One of the best, which I know was it's kind of like a flip from the early part of the season. That's obviously another question. Can their shooting, continue to be at the high level? But with the starting unit specifically, can they continue to be a strong paint / interior team as opposed to a perimeter 3-point team. Because if they can, you can mitigate sometimes, the the waves that come along with 3-point shooting, because sometimes you have good weeks, bad weeks. That's part, the high variance of 3-point shooting.
Khobi Price hanging out with us on a Sunday. He's in Indiana, covers the Lakers for the OC Register, the SoCal News Group, and he'll be covering the game. LeBron will be talking in a couple of hours or so, so he'll be all over that. Khobi, it's funny when I ask the question of biggest question marks for the second half of the season, it kind of leads me to one of my question marks.
Yeah,
D'Lo's been so good this
so
last
good.
month and a half, so
Yeah,
good in this last month and a half, and I've heard James Worthy say it in some of the post game shows. It kind of hit me when he said it. He said something that D'Lo is the key. And it just kind of it sat there with me for a second. It's like D'Lo is the key. Okay, well, I know what he's trying to say. He's not saying that LeBron's not important. He's not trying to say Anthony Davis is not important or Austin Reeves or some of these players. But I think what he's referring to is if D'Lo goes, the Lakers go, or how D'Lo goes, the Lakers go. So I guess the question that I have for you is, he's not only been so incredible to where he's leading the Lakers in scoring in some of these games, 27 here, 30 here, whatever the case is. But let's use that game against the Utah Jazz. Hey, you don't need me to score. Cool. Here's 17 dimes that I'm going to dish out. And obviously that's what the Lakers needed that night. Just his recent play, put that to the side. You can give your opinion on. And then also, how sustainable is what he's doing the rest of the season and obviously through the playoffs?
So on his recent play, I mean, he's been. You mentioned the 17 assist game. I actually go back to the Boston game. I think he had 15 assists. But what was great about, to me, that was so good about that game was, I think he shot like 5 for 20. It was obviously without LeBron, without AD, and he shot like 5 for 20. But to me, just watching the game, he still found a way to bring an impact to the game without shooting well. Whether it's playmaking, getting the rebounds, just being active and involved, not I don't want to say shrinking, but not losing
Confidence
impact.
because
Yeah,
of
or
his shooting.
involved.
Hmm.
Yeah, and not even like a confidence, just involvement. Not being uninvolved because the shooting's not there. Not that being the only thing that you bring, whether it's shooting or scoring. And he missed like a bunch of easy like shots that he typically makes. But even with that, it's like, all right, how can I get in? Like, how can I affect the game in other ways? And that's been, whether it's the assist, whether it's rebounding, like that's been the part that's been encouraging. Um, and it just seems like he mentioned that while he was out with the tailbone contusion, that he was like, the best way to complement LeBron and AD is just to be aggressive. You know, don't you know, don't just placate to them, like in the sense of like, don't placate to them in the sense of like just give them the ball and like watch them go to work, or just like spot up and shoot. Like, play your game. Because LeBron and AD, like, they need guys to be aggressive, and that opens up the floor for them and just makes a better ecosystem. So I actually do have confidence that even if the shooting isn't going to stay the exact same every single game, I do have confidence that he can keep it up in terms of the mentality of be aggressive. You know, don't don't let shooting or the variance of shooting change how you play. It's a hard thing to do for any player, because sometimes you're not shooting, you're like, all right, I have to like shoot less or do less. Well, sometimes it's all right, my shot's not falling. What else can I do? And I think that's what we've seen in the other couple games, or like, oh, my teammate's hot. All right, they're going to shoot. What else can I do? How can I set them up? What else can I do? Get the rebounds, hustle a little bit more. And I think that's what we've seen in various points from D'Lo. So I do have confidence he can keep that up. Whether the shooting comes and goes, that remains to be seen, but I do think he can keep it up.
Yeah, that's been a there was a point, at least in the beginning of January, especially when he got benched, right? Not benched, but he got it. The Lakers took him out of the starting lineup, and all of a sudden you saw his
Yeah.
minutes go from like 30-ish down to 17, and that was kind of the turning point for me. I'm like, man, this is probably a critical stage of his career, because if he goes from being a starter with the Lakers, now he's coming off the bench, predicated on how the team is doing, predicated on, obviously the trade deadline, which was coming for. If you'd have told me this was what's going to happen since then, 6 weeks later, we're sitting here and D'Lo's had this much impact, and I haven't been, I haven't been the guy that's had the most confidence in D'Angelo Russell, but to see his impact over the course of this last month and a half, again, I think we all know this, and Laker fans know this as well. If he plays well, if he's effective, like you said, maybe his shot's not on, even though his shot's been on a lot, but he still finds way to impact the game. That could be a complete game changer for the Lakers. Everybody knows that was following that playoff run for the Lakers last season. Dennis Schroeder was getting a bulk of those minutes, specifically in crunch time, and
Sure.
we'll see how things shake up. But that's obviously been a key piece to what's happened so far this year. I want to get into a couple other things I want to get into here, and I appreciate everybody that's on here. And some of these comments, I'm just going to kind of sprinkle them in on the page. But when we got Khobi for a certain amount of time here, because he's down in Indiana for the All-Star break. AD has been incredible, just
Yeah.
incredible. And you mentioned it actually at the start. You kind of talked a little bit about Anthony Davis and what he's been able to do. As somebody that's got a chance now to see him since he was traded from New Orleans to the Lakers, this is the best that I've seen him. The game against the Utah Jazz, in the third quarter, he had 15 points and 8 rebounds, and it was a 1-point game going into the third. By the time the third quarter was done, they were up 16. Now, it wasn't just him. Rui played really well, but AD's starting to have those nights and those games where both sides of the floor you feel him. It's almost not even a question mark of whether it's going to be there or it's not going to be there. Very, very rare this year that AD is having a game where you didn't feel his impact, and he's also available. Just how impressed have you been with Anthony Davis this year? Were you expecting any of this?
Extremely. I mean, the encouraging part is last season. I forget how many consecutive games he missed um, with the injury he had last year. But after he came back last year, like he was looking great last year. It was just so much of it was him missing time. Um, but now we're seeing that, and then in the playoffs, he was banged up, but he was still effective. He still found ways to affect the game. Even with the ups and downs in the playoffs. But he's been great. Like I know earlier in the season that there's been times when he wasn't as impactful, at least offensively, but he's been the past couple months, or past few months rather, like sensational. Whether it's the scoring, the passing, the playmaking, the defense. Like I don't know what more the Lakers could ask of him or could get from him that he hasn't given them. Shooting comes and goes. All right. That again, I can't get on a guy for that, but just the night in, night out impact has been, not just all-star level, but all NBA level. Um, and I would expect, if he's, stays healthy, can, finishes the season playing a certain amount of games, he's going to make an all NBA team. I feel pretty confident saying that.
Khobi, there is, I think there's a lot of, I'm going to go back for a quick second before I kind of look at the rest of the future for the Lakers. Sometimes by not making a move, it could be a really good move. And we both got to listen to Rob Pelinka right after the Laker trade deadline or right after the NBA trade deadline. And he eventually said, can't buy a house that's not for sale was I think the exact quote that he had. Lakers kept D'Lo. They kept their assets. And then they brought Spencer Dinwiddie in the buyout market. As the dust is kind of settling a little bit, and maybe that also has to do with the fact that the Lakers won some games since the trade deadline. What do you make of the Lakers not making a move at the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the big moves that you maybe wanted to see them make, whether it's for a guy like DeJounte Murray, or even, I guess, less prominent moves like for a Dorian Finney-Smith or Royce O'Neal or players of that caliber. It just didn't seem like those guys would be available for the price that the price I guess you want to say the Lakers were willing to pay. It felt like more of a buyer's market rather than a seller's market. Or I think I said that the wrong way. It felt like more of a seller's market than a buyer's market just because there's so many teams looking to get these guys and not a whole lot of teams have what it takes to get them. So. And then, like, even to the point where how willing were those teams to trade? DeJounte Murray's obviously still with the Hawks. Dorian Finney-Smith, still with his team. So is also just a realization of that. It did feel like maybe the Lakers left a little bit of meat on the bone in terms of maybe smaller moves they could have made, especially with second round picks. But I don't know how much that would have changed their fortunes in terms of this season. Could have. I don't know if there was a move out there like that for them that would have like I said, significantly changed how this season ends or the result of this season.
Sure.
So maybe a little bit of meat left on the bone, but I don't think it's so much left on the bone where it's like an egregious amount. Just like, oh yeah, this could have flipped the championship odds. I don't know if there was a move out there like that for them. And getting Spencer Dinwiddie, on after he was waived by, I think it was Toronto after
Yep.
being traded by the Nets. That's a big move, especially since you're not having to lose anybody in that transaction or in that signing.
Yeah, I'm with you. They literally, I think, got better and didn't have to give up anything. And you kind
Yeah.
of hear a lot of, Rob Pelinka kind of kicking the can down the road. I want to get your opinion, and basically got two more for you here, and then we're going to let you go here. I want to get your opinion on. It's something that we've seen a lot of people kind of start talking about, writing about. It was Rob Pelinka. I thought, putting some pressure on himself here by saying, guys, look, we only had a certain amount of assets now, but in the summer, we're going to have 3 first rounders. What do you make of the idea and the concept of Pelinka being that open about it when he was talking about it, and some of these stories that are out there now on potentially the Lakers grabbing a third star in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, the third star has been a concept or idea that goes back, as far as time. And the thing about the third star is there are there are levels to like the third star. Third or a big three. You can go back to the Celtics. Oh, those late 2000 Celtics, with Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin
Sure.
Garnett. Or you can go to the Heat, with LeBron, D Wade, Chris Bosh. Obviously, the Warriors were a little bit of an anomaly when they had, Steph, KD, put in one of Draymond and Clay. Like, so that's more of a big four than a big three. So the third star, like there's always the give and take of, typically the third star comes at the price of depth, and it feels like the past few seasons we've seen more of the two-star plus depth, or a 3 and 4 that can equate to a third star and also provide depth, be a more successful model than what we're seeing maybe in Phoenix right now with their 3 stars, or in Brooklyn before with their 3 stars. Um, Conceptually, the 3 stars model will always be sought after just because at least in the regular season, if you lose one of your stars, then you have 2 stars who can kind of get you across the finish line. Um, so I get why Rob Pelinka is saying that we can chase a third star with these picks, because that's always, if you can get a third star, especially at this point of the Lakers tenure where, you know, this is we're wrapping up. LeBron's closer to the end of year
Of
21.
course.
So you have to start thinking, even if you think LeBron's going to be back next season with the Lakers, like it feels it's always in the back of my mind. Like at some point, this show is going to end in terms of LeBron show, and you have to prepare yourself for the post LeBron era. And you will hope it's not, it's AD. You hope to have another star alongside AD, and maybe that third star for now can be your second star for the future alongside AD, and that gets you to like the post. Gets you to the post LeBron era. So I also think of that. So I get that. And if you can get like that third star now who can help, in LeBron's period, but also post LeBron, I get why you would chase that, because the worry is that if you don't get them now, then what happens if LeBron leaves or
Hmm.
retires, and then it's just AD and
Hmm.
Austin, and then but like other like good depth, but you may not have what it takes to be a true contender once LeBron's no longer on the team.
Cobb, actually, it's literally the last question that I have, and it's a perfect transition to it. So, um, it's been an interesting, let's call it 30 days around LeBron James, and whether that's the hourglass tweet, whether that's the reports and rumors that the Warriors were trying to lure LeBron up to the Bay. We all know that the final year or after this season, he's got a player option, so it's up to him if he wants to come back. I saw some stuff from the Athletic talking about how the Bronny James piece of it all, and what would happen there if how aggressive would the Lakers be to try to accommodate something like that. What's your take on Bron this last month or so, and what's your take on just kind of his thoughts about the franchise, where it is, and moving forward?
Yeah, I think one of the most encouraging parts of the report from ESPN that came out with it being reported that the Warriors pursued LeBron and even reached out to, I think it was Jimmy Buss and Rapalinka and even Rich Paul, is that Rich and LeBron basically, they essentially assured the Lakers that that they want to stay, which I think is a positive, not just for this season, obviously, because he's still in the Lakers, but also maybe for the future, short term, long term future. With LeBron, it's kind of weird to say long term future because you just don't know what how long that
Sure.
future is. But that at least seemed encouraging from the standpoint of he wants to remain, a Laker and be in LA. It's so tough because, like I said, we're in unprecedented territory in terms of not just a star playing this long, but a star playing this long and still being producing at the star level, at a high star level at that. So it feels like the last month things have turned around. There are better vibes around the team. There's been more success. Um, so things feel better now about LeBron's future than maybe even a month ago. But he has a player option for this offseason, and we still have 26 regular season games plus a playoff run to go through. So all of this can influence and ultimately help decide what that future looks like. But it feels like I don't. It's weird to say this, but I think there should still be an appreciation for the fact that he still is playing at this level
Hmm.
at the stage of his career, and it's one of those weird spots where you don't want to lose sight of that because it should be appreciated, like how good he is at this stage. At the same time, he's also playing for championships. He's trying to contend. So to balance the two, at least from the fan perspective, I can understand the challenge of that because you want championships at the same time. Don't forget that what he's doing is unprecedented, and it's like a weird spot. It's not weird, but it's a tricky spot to be in, I'll say.
First off, shout out to Lazy One. Andrew turns 21 today. Happy birthday, brother. Khobi, one thing that you said, and this is kind of funny because look at these kind of odds that Bronny lands, and that's not the only one. Could Bronny be
Yeah.
a starter on the Lake? Okay, that's a little extreme there. I mean, I appreciate all the super chats, but I don't think
Yeah.
anybody thinks that. But there are a few comments here that's just on the Bronny piece of it, and I don't know what's going to happen, right? Like I
Yeah.
think the Lakers are obviously the he hasn't been playing at SC as if he's going to be a first round or anything along those lines. So I don't know what happens between now and then. But what you were just saying about LeBron and kind of his state of where he feels today, but also what happens between now and the rest of the season, also what happens in the playoffs, and then lastly, what eventually is decided in the offseason. I don't have the answer. You don't have the answer, but I think it's interesting to we got those questions out there, and I don't think they're going to go anywhere.
Yeah, no, those questions, understandably so, they're going to be questions that remain questions until we get, either answers or a little bit more, I don't know, better science as to what those answers are or will be.
Khobi, thank you for doing this, brother.
No,
I'm really, really excited to have you on the channel. Khobi Price covers the Lakers for the SoCal News Group. He's at the All-Star game. He's still got a lot of work left to do today, so I'm going to let him go do his thing. But thank you very much for this, and we're going to do this again, and we'll catch you second half of the season at some point. But thank you for coming on.
no, appreciate me on. Really do.
Okay, Laker fans, appreciate it. We'll get back with you guys soon. Enjoy the All-Star game today.